I teach first aid classes. A student recognized my CPR dummy as her missing sister. I've been teaching CPR and first aid for 7 years, and I thought I'd seen every possible student reaction to the training dummies. Nervous laughter, awkward jokes, even the occasional person who faints at the sight of the plastic chest compressions. But I had never, in all my years, seen someone look at a practice dummy and scream, "That's my sister!" My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I run a small but successful first aid training business out of a rented community center space in Riverside, a mid-sized town where nothing particularly interesting ever happens. I'm certified by the American Heart Association. I've trained everyone from high school students to corporate executives, and I take my work seriously. Very seriously. The dummies I use aren't cheap. They're high-end medical training mannequins. The kind with realistic chest recoil, proper airway anatomy, and faces molded from actual human features to make the training as lifelike as possible. My favorite, the one I use for all my advanced courses, is a female dummy I call Annie. She has delicate features, a small nose, high cheekbones, and an expression that's somehow both peaceful and haunting. I bought her 3 years ago from a medical supply company that was going out of business. The price was suspiciously low, almost too good to be true, but I was a small business owner on a tight budget. I didn't ask questions. I should have. It was a Tuesday evening class, one of my standard 8-hour CPR certification courses. The group was small, just 6 people, 2 middle-aged women taking the class for a daycare job requirement, a nervous young man who worked at a gym, an older gentleman who wanted to be prepared just in case, and 2 younger women in their mid-20s who had signed up together. The class always follows the same rhythm. I start with introductions, move into the theory of cardiac arrest and the chain of survival, demonstrate proper hand placement and compression depth on Annie, and then let the students practice. It's routine, predictable, safe. I was about 45 minutes into the session, demonstrating the head tilt chin lift maneuver on Annie's eerily realistic face, when I noticed one of the younger women had gone completely pale. Her name tag read Jessica. She was staring at the dummy with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not disgust, not fear, something else. Something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Are you okay?" I asked, pausing mid-demonstration. Some people find the dummies a bit unsettling at first. It's completely normal. She didn't answer. She just kept staring, her breathing becoming rapid and shallow. Her friend, whose name tag read Megan, put a hand on her shoulder. "Jess? What's wrong?" And then Jessica stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the linoleum floor, walked slowly toward the dummy, and whispered in a voice that was barely audible, "Where did you get this?" I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "I'm sorry." She pointed at Annie's face with a trembling hand. "This face. Where did you get this face?" Now, where was I? Oh yes, Jessica was standing over my training dummy, her face drained of all color, asking me a question I didn't know how to answer. I tried to keep my voice calm and professional. "It's just a standard medical training mannequin. They're manufactured to look realistic. Sometimes the features can seem familiar because they're designed to look like a generic—" "No," Jessica interrupted, her voice rising. "This isn't generic. This is specific. This is my sister. This is Emily." The room went silent. The other students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Megan stood up and tried to guide Jessica back to her chair. "Jess, honey, you're upset. It just looks like her. It's not actually." "Look at the mole," Jessica said, pointing to a small, barely visible mark just above the dummy's left eyebrow. Right there, Emily had a mole in that exact spot. "And the scar on the chin. Do you see it? That tiny scar. She got that when she fell off her bike when she was 8. I looked, and God help me, there was a small, faint line on the dummy's chin. A detail so minor, I had never noticed it before in 3 years of using this mannequin. I tried to maintain control of the situation, but my own hands were starting to shake. "I understand this is distressing," I said, my voice steady despite the growing unease in my chest. But I can assure you, this is just a medical training dummy. It's made of silicone and plastic. It's not. It can't be. Jessica pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. She swiped through her photos and then held the screen up to the dummy's face. The resemblance was undeniable. The woman in the photo had the same delicate features, the same small nose, the same high cheekbones, the same mole, the same scar. Emily Harper, Jessica said, her voice breaking. My sister. She disappeared 4 years ago. She was 23 years old. She went to a medical conference in the city and never came home. The police investigated. They found nothing. No body, no leads, no closure. And now I'm looking at her face on a CPR dummy in a community center first aid class. The room erupted in uncomfortable murmurs. The older gentleman stood up. I think I need some air, he muttered, and walked out. The 2 daycare workers exchanged horrified glances. The gym employee just stared at his shoes. I felt like I was going to be sick. I bought this dummy 3 years ago, I stammered. From a medical supply company. MedTech Solutions. They were going out of business. I have the invoice. I have all the paperwork. This is a legitimate medical training product. Then where did they get the face? Jessica demanded, her voice now loud and accusatory. These things are molded from real people, aren't they? Someone had to sit for this. Someone had to give permission. Did Emily give permission? Did someone take her face without her knowing? Megan was now crying quietly. Jess, we should call the police. Right now. No, I said quickly, then realized how that sounded. I mean, yes, of course. Call the police. But I need to check something first. I walked to my office, a small converted storage room at the back of the community center, my legs feeling like they were made of rubber. I pulled out the filing cabinet where I kept all my business records and found the invoice from MedTech Solutions. The company name was printed at the top in professional letterhead. But as I looked at it now, really looked at it, I noticed things I hadn't paid attention to before. The address was a P.O. box. The phone number, when I tried to call it, was disconnected. The email address bounced back as undeliverable. I pulled up the company's website on my laptop. It was gone. The domain was for sale. I searched for any news articles about MedTech Solutions going out of business. Nothing. No bankruptcy filings. No liquidation sales. No trace of the company ever existing beyond the single piece of paper in my hand. My stomach dropped. I had bought a training dummy with a missing woman's face from a company that didn't exist. I walked back into the classroom, the invoice clutched in my shaking hand. Jessica was on the phone with someone, her voice urgent and tearful. The other students had gathered their things and were quietly leaving, shooting me looks that ranged from pity to suspicion. The police are on their way, Megan said quietly. They want to see the dummy, and they want to talk to you. I nodded numbly, and then I made a decision that would change everything. I walked over to Annie, knelt down beside her, and for the first time in 3 years, I really looked at her. Not as a training tool, but as a person. And that's when I saw it. Etched into the base of the dummy's neck, hidden beneath the collar of the training shirt I always dressed her in, was a small series of numbers. A serial number, or something else. But what I saw next made my blood run cold, because carved just below those numbers in tiny, desperate letters were 2 words, "Help me." The police arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers, Detective Marcus Chen and Officer Linda Rodriguez, both looking skeptical but professional. Jessica showed them the photo of her sister. They examined the dummy's face. They took pictures. They measured the mole. They documented the scar. Detective Chen crouched down and looked at the inscription I had found. "Help me," he read aloud, his voice neutral. He looked up at me. "How long have you owned this mannequin, Miss Mitchell?" 3 years, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I bought it from a company called MedTech Solutions, but I think the company might not have been real. He stood up, his expression hardening. We're gonna need to take this as evidence, and we're gonna need you to come down to the station to give a full statement. Am I in trouble? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. That depends, Officer Rodriguez said, not unkindly, on what we find out. The next 3 days were a nightmare. The police seized Annie along with all my business records. My classes were canceled. Students demanded refunds. The local news picked up the story. Local first aid instructor uses dummy with missing woman's face. The headline made me sound like a monster. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I kept thinking about that inscription. Help me. Had Emily carved that? Was she alive when the mold was made? Was she trying to send a message? Or was this all some horrible, impossible coincidence? Detective Chen called me on the 3rd day. We need you to come in, he said. We've made some discoveries, and we need your help. The police station was cold and sterile. Detective Chen led me to a small conference room where Officer Rodriguez was waiting with a laptop and several file folders spread across the table. Sit down, Ms. Mitchell, Chen said. His tone was less accusatory now, almost sympathetic. He opened one of the folders and pulled out a photograph. It was a man in his 50s, balding, with cold eyes and a thin smile. Do you recognize this person? I studied the photo. No, I've never seen him before. His name is Dr. Raymond Kellerman, Rodriguez said. He was a medical researcher, specialized in creating hyper-realistic medical training equipment. He had a company called MedTech Solutions. My heart started pounding. Had? He disappeared 4 years ago, Chen said, around the same time as Emily Harper. We've been investigating him for years in connection with several missing persons cases. Young women, all in their 20s, all last seen attending medical conferences or training seminars. I felt like I was going to throw up. You think he took them? Rodriguez leaned forward. We think he was creating these dummies using real people, not just molding their faces, using them. We found his workshop 3 months ago. It was abandoned, but there was evidence. Dental molds, hair samples, and equipment for creating life casts. Life casts? I whispered. It's a process where you cover a person's face with alginate, a molding material, to create an exact replica, Chen explained. It's used in special effects, medical prosthetics, and apparently in Dr. Kellerman's case, for creating disturbingly realistic training dummies. But the inscription, I said. The help me. If he was making molds of their faces, that means they were alive when he did it, Rodriguez finished quietly. And conscious. The alginate process takes about 15 minutes. You have to stay completely still. You have to breathe through your nose. It's claustrophobic, terrifying. And if someone was being held against their will, they might try to leave a message, I finished, my voice hollow. Chen nodded. We believe Emily Harper scratched that message into the base of the mold while Kellerman was preparing the silicone. It's a long shot, a desperate act, but it worked because you found it. I sat there trying to process what I was hearing. So Emily, is she? We don't know, Rodriguez said gently. We've been searching for Kellerman for 4 years. We've found 3 other dummies with similar inscriptions, 3 other missing women. But we haven't found him, and we haven't found them. Until now, Chen said, his eyes intense. Because you, Miss Mitchell, are the only person who has a direct paper trail to MedTech Solutions. You have an invoice, a shipping address. Even if it's a P.O. box, it's more than we've ever had before. He slid a piece of paper across the table toward me. It was my invoice, but he encircled something I hadn't noticed before. A small notation in the corner. Delivered by R.K. Unit 7B. R.K., I whispered. Raymond Kellerman. And Unit 7B, Rodriguez said, pulling up a map on her laptop, is a storage facility on the outskirts of town. We've already secured a warrant. We're going there tonight, and we'd like you to come with us. I stared at them. Why me? Because, Chen said, his voice quiet but firm. If Emily Harper is still alive, if any of them are still alive, they're going to need immediate medical attention. And you, Missy Mitchell, you're the only first aid instructor in this town who knows how to save a life. The storage facility was a sprawling complex of rusted metal units on the edge of an industrial park. We arrived just after midnight, a convoy of police vehicles with lights off, moving in silence. I was in the back of Detective Chen's car, wearing a borrowed police vest, my hands shaking so badly I had to sit on them. Unit 7B is in the back corner, Rodriguez said, checking her weapon. We don't know what we're going to find in there. Stay behind us. Do not enter until we've cleared the space. Understood? I nodded, unable to speak. We approached the unit on foot. It was larger than the others, with a heavy padlock and no windows. Chen used bolt cutters to snap the lock. The sound echoed in the still night air, like a gunshot. He pulled the rolling door up slowly. The smell hit us first. Chemicals, silicone, and something else. Something organic and wrong. Rodriguez shone her flashlight inside, and then she gasped. The unit was a workshop, but it wasn't abandoned. It was active. There were workbenches covered in molds, silicone mixing equipment, and dozens of mannequin faces in various stages of completion. And in the back corner, behind a makeshift curtain, were 4 hospital beds. 3 of them were empty. But one was occupied. A woman lay on the bed, unconscious, an IV in her arm. She was thin, pale, and her face was the same face I had been teaching CPR on for 3 years. Emily, I whispered. Rodriguez ran to her, checking for a pulse. She's alive. Barely. We need an ambulance. Now. Chen was already on his radio, calling for medical backup. I moved forward on instinct, my training taking over. I checked her airway. Her breathing was shallow but present. Her pulse was weak. She was severely dehydrated and malnourished. She's been kept sedated, I said, my voice shaking. Look at the IV. That's not saline. That's a sedative drip. As the paramedics arrived and began working on Emily, Detective Chen searched the rest of the unit. He found files, detailed records of every woman Kellerman had taken, photographs of the molding process, and a ledger of sales. He had been selling these dummies to medical training facilities all over the country. He's been doing this for over a decade, Chen said, his voice filled with disgust. Abducting women, keeping them sedated, using their faces to create custom mannequins, and then selling them for profit. And when he was done with them, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. The other beds, I said. Where are the other women? Rodriguez found a calendar on the wall. 3 dates were circled in red. 3 dates in the past month. Next to each date was a name and a single word. Disposed. My stomach turned. He killed them. We'll find them, Chen said grimly. And we'll find him. Emily was loaded into the ambulance. Jessica, who had been waiting outside the perimeter, ran forward, sobbing, and climbed in beside her sister. She's alive, she kept saying over and over. She's alive. I stood there in the cold night air, watching the ambulance drive away, its lights cutting through the darkness. I had spent 3 years teaching people how to save lives using a dummy that was created from a woman who desperately needed saving herself. The irony was almost too much to bear. Dr. Raymond Kellerman was apprehended 2 weeks later, trying to cross the border into Canada. He's now awaiting trial on multiple counts of kidnapping, assault, and murder. The bodies of the 3 other women were found in a remote wooded area. Emily Harper was the only one who survived. She spent a month in the hospital recovering from severe malnutrition and the effects of long-term sedation. The doctors said it was a miracle she was alive at all. When she was finally well enough to speak, she told the police everything. The abduction, the workshop, The terrifying process of having her face molded while she was conscious and restrained, and the desperate act of scratching "Help me" into the base of the mold with a piece of broken plastic she had found on the floor. I didn't think anyone would ever see it, she told me when I visited her in the hospital. I needed to do something. I needed to leave some trace that I existed, that I was real. I closed my first aid training business. I couldn't do it anymore. Every time I looked at a training dummy, I saw Emily's face. I saw the faces of the women who didn't survive. I saw the horror of what had been done to them. That was real. I closed my first aid training business. I couldn't do it anymore. Every time I looked at a training dummy, I saw Emily's face. I saw the faces of the women who didn't survive. I saw the horror of what had been done to them. But I didn't stop teaching. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, teaching self-defense and basic first aid to survivors of violence. I wanted to help people protect themselves. I wanted to give them the tools to fight back. Jessica and Emily both took my class. They wanted to learn. They wanted to be prepared. And they wanted to thank me. "You saved my sister's life," Jessica said to me one day after class. "Not just by finding that message, but by caring enough to look. Most people wouldn't have. Most people would have just seen a dummy. But you saw a person." I think about that a lot, about how easy it is to stop seeing people, to reduce them to objects, to tools, to things we use without thinking. Emily Harper was turned into a training dummy, a lifeless object designed to teach others how to save lives, while her own life was slowly being taken away. But she fought back. In the smallest, most desperate way possible, she left a message, and that message saved her. I still have the invoice from MedTech Solutions. Detective Chen offered to take it as evidence, but I asked to keep it. I keep it in a frame on my wall now, next to a photo of Emily and Jessica, both smiling, both alive. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply pay attention, to look closer, to see the person behind the object, because you never know when a life might depend on it. And sometimes, the person teaching CPR might be the one who needs to remember how to breathe.